Welcome to this leadership episode of 30 Minutes to President's Club. My name is Armand Farouk, and I'm here with my co-host, Nick Sigelski. And folks, today we have someone who's been on the show multiple times. He is the author of The Transparency Sale. He is the author of The Transparent Sales Leader, and he is a multiple-time VP of Sales and CRO. One of the best guests we've ever had. His name is Todd Caponi. Nick, why should people listen?
So Todd takes us through a number of different frameworks and lenses through which you can think about navigating your sales leadership job, both on the 5 things that you have to nail as a sales leader, as well as a number of different levers that you can pull to get your team motivated. And so listen to this one if you feel like you are herding cats as a sales leader, or if you feel like your team just isn't at the level of motivation where they need to be, and you need to get that fire relit.
Alrighty, Todd, welcome back to the show. We start every show with your top 3 actionable leadership takeaways. Let's get your 3.
All right, number 1 is, why do salespeople get a framework and sales leaders don't? A few years ago, when I first got promoted into sales leadership, I wondered that 2 days in when I realized I felt like a dog chasing a car down the street. Nobody taught me what sales leadership was. I created a framework. Here it is. There's 5 responsibilities that every revenue leader has to maximize their revenue capacity. Internalize those, and you can use it for everything. You first have to focus the team on the right opportunities, right companies, right people. You have to build a field organization to support that focus, not the other way around. You got to make sure that field organization is getting the fundamentals right, so it's getting the right things right consistently. You got to forecast, so it means the metrics and the KPIs, and then you got to create a fun environment where culture thrives. Internalize those 5 F's. You're going to sound really smart, but you can use it for everything. So that's number 1.
Boom. What's number 2?
Number 2 is, when I look at all of these old books behind me, it's amazing that forecasting was not a problem 100 years ago like it is today, and I figured out why. The why is, back then, all of their forecasting was based on recognizing buyer behavior, not seller behavior. All of our stages today are seller-centric. I advocate for doing a simple thing, which is take your seller stages, layer over the top buyer centrism, buyer behavior, which all of us go through 3 stages when we're buying. Why change what I'm doing today? Why you versus something else? And why now? You can layer those over the top. And the next thing you know, you're actually able to predict when a buyer will buy because you're focused on what the buyer is doing and not what your seller is doing. So that's number 2, layering in buyer centrism over the top of your seller stages.
We only have 3 stages in this show, so bring us home to a close one. What's number 3?
Number 3 is, one of the really important roles of any leader is establishing and growing and maximizing the culture. So your team shows up every day, stays, does their best, and becomes advocates for you. I created a framework for that too, right? And I'm too much of a dumbass, so I had to align it to the word praise. But all of your salespeople, all of your revenue generating people are driven by the word praise. The P is predictability. The R is recognition. The A is aim, meaning their work matters. The I is independence. The S is security. And the E is equitability, or is the juice worth the squeeze? Internalize that praise model and create a culture where you're going to love to show up every day too.
So, Todd, we were talking a little bit on the pre-show about the concept of those 5 F's. And at first, I thought you were talking about Armand's high school report card, but quickly you disavowed me of that belief. And you were talking about this concept of focus in the context of focus sprints, where you took over a revenue organization that was struggling, and you actually narrowed the team's focus, and it actually led to more results. So I'm wondering if you can talk about that concept of sprinting in focus.
I refer to it as doing extreme firmographic sprints. And what I mean by that, like you said, Nick, that my team at the time, we had a huge total addressable market. I only had a few reps because we had gone through a rift before they promoted me. And I think I got promoted because I was cheap. But the problem was, when you've got reps that have 400 accounts they could call on, multiple industries, is the only thing they could be experts on was what we do. They couldn't really teach our customers anything. I've always felt like the key to successful selling and sales leadership, for that matter, is arming your reps to be able to make customers smarter about their business, not ours. And so we had some success in aerospace, so companies that make planes. And I thought, hey, why don't we do a little sprint around just making all the reps smarter about that industry. And part of it was because there was a consultant available that had come from the aerospace and defense industry. Like, older dude, worked in it forever. We brought him in, and first thing we did was just go, hey, let's just teach the reps. So we didn't shrink territories. I don't advocate for that. I advocate for, hey, let's build confidence in a lane so that you just want to call them. Your confidence builds and your confidence becomes contagious. So we brought them in. There was essentially 4 things that you can do in a sprint. We asked them, number one, in the aerospace and defense industry, what are the headwinds and tailwinds in the industry? Like, what's going on that we should all know about that's making things good and what's standing in the way? Number 2 is when we think about the roles within the organizations, who are these roles that would care about what we do? But more importantly, how are they measured? What are the things that when they go home at night, they know that they've succeeded versus not? How are they getting bonus? That sort of thing. Number 3 is these individuals, where do they go to get smarter about their industry and their role? So what do they read? Who do they follow? What podcasts do they listen to? All of that kind of stuff. And then we'd go sign up and do that. And then number 4 is my favorite. It's, hey, can we see your inbox? And what I mean by that is you get salespeople emailing you all day long. What stands out? Like, what looks like white noise that gets select all deleted? And what are the things that go, hey, you know what? This is making me smarter about me and my business. This is here to help me, not sell me. Show me those. And we did that with the consultants. We did that with the customers that we had in that industry, bring them in. They wanted to see us be successful. Show us your inbox was like my favorite thing to always say, but we'd always tee them up for it so they could hide the stuff that we weren't going to be able to look at. But man, did that help us a ton. So we did aerospace and defense. We were only doing $3 million in revenue. We did a $7 million deal with Boeing because my rep went in and made them smarter about their business. We then got Gulfstream, we got Cessna, we got Northrop Grumman, grew 400% year over year. We slowly expanded out from aerospace and defense. So we didn't go off the rails, but we started looking at who looks like a discrete manufacturer like them. Oh, heavy machinery, oil and gas, automotive. Went slowly out, grew 400% again the next year, and then sold the business to SAP. I just think that if we hadn't done firmographic sprints, we would have been scattered and probably circled the drain down it.
So my buddy is at a company that just got acquired by a bigger company. And so he's supporting some platform AEs. And one of the things that they did to make sure that AEs were selling the new product is they did like double accelerators and spiffs on any deals that had the new product. And the reason for that is sales reps can get in the motion of being like, I always sell these 3 products in a deal. I know it works. I try to sell this one product once, it doesn't work. Let me go back to the core. And the same thing happens in territories where someone's like, I have all these California accounts. I know you want me to break into Tennessee, but I talked to someone in Tennessee. That person talks a lot different than the person in California. And this feels really different for my sales cycles. And now I know the easy path is California. How would you reason with someone in that situation who thinks, no, like you have to like force AEs into the friction or monetarily incentivize them to do that? Is information or education alone enough to get them to go after new types of accounts?
Well, yeah. I mean, why are they comfortable talking about those first 3 products? Because they know them. They're confident in them. You know, that third takeaway when we talked about the praise model and intrinsic inspiration, it really comes from this idea that if you think your reps are coin operated, you're right if you're doing it wrong. That variable compensation needs to become the reward for doing work we love to do and not the reason we do it. I think the same thing could be said here. Every time we did those education events where we deep dive on a certain industry, the reps loved it because they felt smarter. When you think about going into Boeing, at the time, Boeing was struggling getting 787s out the door. It's kind of a big issue. And we actually could address a chunk of why that was happening. Now, do you think my rep, who had been selling to 100 different industries for the last 5 years, could walk confidently into a VP of manufacturing at Boeing, who can barely sleep at night because CNBC's ripping on them because their planes aren't getting out the door with any confidence? No. We educated him. And all of a sudden, this head of manufacturing is like, you can help me here. Let's go. I don't think that could have possibly happened if all we did is go, hey, we're going to throw some extra money at aerospace and defense accounts. I think it's, again, education breeds confidence, confidence begets confidence, and that's where you really start to see your reps thrive.
My question for you is like, how did you actually, like when you reached out to your customers to ask them to come take time out of their schedule to speak to your team, what did that ask sound like so folks can sort of replicate that if they want to do this on their own?
I think a lot of companies do that, but at every single kickoff, they got customers on stage, right? Doing the panels and all that kind of stuff. The customers want to come talk to you. They want to be successful. All I'm advocating for is instead of, hey, tell us how great we are. Oh, did you talk about how great the rep was? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Instead, talk about the things that are going to help us duplicate the experiences that you had in other companies. Like, make us smarter about your business, not ours.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
I think you're right. A lot of times as a rep, I've had customers come speak to the team, and the customers think that because they use our software, they're supposed to talk about their experience with the software, which, don't get me wrong, is moderately helpful, but you're actually telling your customer, I actually don't want you to focus on that as much. It's just like your job and your space. And so you almost have to tee them up and coach them.
Yeah, exactly. Again, so often we focus on case study type conversations with those customers, but case studies, again, sound like 5-star reviews. And we all know when we're reading reviews online, we skip the 5s, we read the 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s first, right? We all do that. The same exact thing happens here. We're arming reps with 5-star reviews that nobody cares about. So instead, again, let's put ourselves in the shoes of the customers we're going to be calling on. Yeah. How do we become more empathetic? Well, it starts with understanding their world. And when you've got this gold mine of a customer who wants to see you be successful, we've never had anybody that wasn't willing to share.
One of the things that is extremely underrated in sales today is industry expertise. And the reason for that is a lot of salespeople are given a nail and they're told, go find something that looks like a hole. Instead of understanding, for example, when people have a home, what are the things that most likely lead to people having holes in their home, for instance? And so one of the things that we would do this at Pave when I was selling compensation software is before we actually showed them the product, we would make them run a compensation review in spreadsheets. So we would be like, hey, go try to give this employee a comp increase and make sure you update all 3 spreadsheets. Okay, make sure that when you share this comp information, you remove the version control so that the person that you pass the spreadsheet to can't see the previous person's comp after you deleted the cells. And then what we would do is at the end is we would reveal all the mistakes and be like, okay, you're all pretty smart. I know you're not compensation people, but this is the problem that we're trying to prevent for our buyers. Now let's show you how the product solves this problem. So orient people around the industry and put them in the day in the life of the prospect's world without your solution, and then the solution will make sense to people.
One of the companies that I worked with, they could sell to anybody who sold stuff online. Who's that? Millions of companies? Well, yeah. I encouraged the founder and CEO to just, hey, why don't you go dig in? I had a really good buddy that was a head of e-commerce at Crocs. And so I put the 2 of them on the phone right away. And I was like, ask them these questions, just dig into it, learn apparel footwear. And the next thing you know, they went out and they got Skechers and they got Michael Kors and they got Echo, and they started growing slowly from there. Because imagine being able to walk into Skechers and go, hey, what's going on with the cost of rubber right now? And, the materials that, like, being able to talk in their language, the things that they care about. I want to talk to people that can make me smarter about my business and my world all day long. I don't care about yours. I mean, again, no offense, but if you can make me smarter about my business and bring me information that maybe I'm not aware of because I'm living in my bubble, that's so valuable. And that's really the key to this. Those firmographic sprints build the confidence that allows those customers to want to talk to you. And that's, again, goes back to the old world of salespeople won't be needed in 5 years. They'll always be needed if they're providing value. And I think that especially today, that is the key way to do it, is with these firmographic sprints.
So let's say I'm a sales leader who has 5, 6, 7 different verticals that I can sell into, and I'm bought in with this idea of the firmographic sprint. It sounds like one of the education sessions you're doing is like the customer sort of interview. Give me a sense of how long do these sprints typically last? And what other education sessions are actually happening in this? And where do those fall? Are they falling in one-on-ones? Are they falling in team meetings? Am I just sending a Slack message to the team saying, go read this stuff? Help make this real for me of like what goes into a sprint.
The first one that we did started with, we happened to know a consultant that had come from the industry and knew everybody and everything. That was really valuable. If you don't have that, you bring in the customers and you ask those types of questions. It doesn't take many, especially with that third question that I mentioned, which is, hey, where do you go to get smarter about your industry, your business, your role? We started having the reps do it. And then during our team meetings, every week, a rep would come in and teach us something. Hey, I read this article. Here's what I learned. Here's something that's going on. Here's some legislation that's happening that affects everybody in this industry that if we can speak that language, that's valuable. Here's a conference they're all going to. So it ends up feeding down. So you've got customers. If you've got, marketing, focus their case studies on those and help educate us on the details of that. Because again, like we said, still value in knowing what problem did we solve and how did it work and the whole process, what went well, what didn't. But then we started encouraging the reps to come teach us at sales meetings. And it's not just us giving updates and talking about the forecast. It's, again, make us smarter about the industry. To your question about how long, again, it depends on how broad the category is. But we did, 6-week sprints. At that first company, the sprint lasted much longer because our deals were all 7 figures.
Yeah.
And they took a long time.
Sure.
I mean, again, if you're doing faster rotations, start tight, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, and then go out slowly from there.
So I've got a 6-week sprint. Up front, I'm educating my reps on the industry. It starts with customer interviews, and then in the back half, now reps are actually contributing content to the table. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about is how do you run a customer interview, or what are the types of questions you can ask your customers to get them to really immerse you in the problems they have, not just in why they like your product?
Let's start with the tailwinds. So why are people buying? Why are things going well? Let's look at the headwinds. What worries you? What concerns you? 2 years from now, what are you going to be complaining about? Again, that's got nothing to do with our product. Tell us about your role and your position. How do somebody measure whether or not you're doing your job well? Just ask them that, right? That's got nothing to do with you. And what are the measures? What are the things that tell the world that you're actually succeeding in your role? And then again, number 3, when we get done here and you're sitting on a plane and you punch into Wi-Fi, what are you going to be listening to? What are you going to be reading about your industry and about your role? And then again, number 4, it's show me the emails that get deleted. Show me the emails that make you want to engage with a rep.
So Todd, I want to transition us to this concept of the praise model that you were talking about in your third actionable takeaway, which are these 6 different drivers of rep motivation, or really human motivation. And you had one thing you were telling me on the pre-show about how you gave away $1,000 in cold hard cash on the sales floor, and that actually motivated people more than their commissions that were way more than that. And so I'm wondering if you can talk about that story, and then we can talk some more about some of the other ways you can get your team actually motivated.
When you look at the praise model, the R is recognition. And recognition is things like status and validation and award, like that type of things. We do our best work as human beings when we're recognized for the effort. What I had done, and this was almost accidental, but I remember I was the CRO. I had a VP of sales that was running my corporate team. Comes into my office. He's like, hey, do we have any spiff money? Like, do we have anything we can do to kind of run a contest? And so I grabbed the CFO, who was awesome. And I'm like, dude, do we have any money? Like, is there anything in the budget? He's like, I'm going to the bank. I'll be right back. Comes back, throws an envelope that's got 10 $100 bills in it. And he's just like, do what you want with this. So I called my head of sales in. We're like, what do you want to do? We configured this idea. So my inside team, so they're all co-located. We told the team that, hey, for the next 10 deals that are over 12K in ARR, and our average deal size in the corporate was like 26. So 12 was a kind of a low bar too. We were like, the next 10 deals, 12K or higher, we're going to come out with pomp and circumstance, throw a $100 bill and celebrate you. And we're going to put your name on the wall. This was the beginning of a quarter when things were slow. We closed 10 deals faster than we ever did. The reps were like climbing over each other for the $100. The recognition that they got it, their name on the wall. Again, you do a $12,000 deal, even that's a low end, and you're making 8 to 10%. I wasn't a math major, but that's a lot more than $100. It was this rallying thing. It has nothing to do with the $100. It's got everything to do with the recognition. I think there's opportunities that we kind of skip over a lot of things and a lot of times that allow our reps to just get an extra little intrinsic inspiration by seeing their name on that wall and being celebrated in front of their peers. That's an opportunity for people. I think we tend to forget about it. A lot of times we don't recognize anything, and we don't even validate that you showed up for work that day. It's just an opportunity. Again, we do our best work when we're recognized for our effort, we're given some level of status, and we're given regular feedback. And that's a way to make sure that you're cultivating a team that wins together.
What would you say is one of the least utilized, highest return motivators for reps that I could leverage as a leader?
I think this was one of the biggest contributors to the Great Resignation. The A, which is aim.
Mhm.
Meaning, if your reps think that the mission, purpose, the aim of their work is to hit a target, I think you're doing it wrong. When you ask a rep, hey, your work, what do you think it matters to me? What do you think it matters to our company? What do you think it matters to our customers? What do you think your work matters to our customer's customer? If they don't know that, you're missing out an incredible inspirational type of element that drives us to want to do more. One of my companies that I taught the leadership to, they interviewed a CFO. One of the questions they asked the CFO was that, like, hey, what's one unexpected outcome you got from working with us? What does our work and what we do mean to you? He pointed at a couch in his office and he was like, you gave me my family back. And they're like, what are you talking about? He's like, at the end of every quarter, I've got to close the books. I got to consolidate things. It took so much time, so much effort, and had to be perfect. We were a publicly traded company. I spent every weekend here, around the clock, 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. I get home, go to sleep, come back. And sometimes I was sleeping on that couch. You gave me my family back with my kids, my weekends, going to soccer games that I was missing. I got weekends back with my family. That was a question that was asked the CFO that seemed kind of out there, but that answer inspired the rest of the team to go, hey, listen, we're not selling financial consolidation tools. My purpose is not to hit a quota. We're giving CFOs their families back. And suddenly they're like, whoa. And so at PowerReviews, for example, we were selling ratings and reviews technology that sat on websites. Who cares? You know who cares? That end consumer that uses that information to make informed decisions with their hard-earned dollars that they don't have a whole lot of, making really smart decisions. Once we switched that and got all of our reps rallying around the aim of their work is not to hit a quota, it's to help arm families to make inspired decisions, smart decisions, to help CFOs go home on the weekends and spend time with their family.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, magic happened. Turnover went down. We went through an 18-month period where turnover was less than 2%. That's crazy. And it can happen. I think it's an underutilized element that most leaders are completely overlooking.
There are a lot of sales teams out there where you walk in and they're going through the motions of the Monday morning meeting. The VP of sales gets on, alrighty, folks, we got to hit this number. Everyone's eyes are glazed over. All the people are multitasking on Slack. And there's this general just like droll that happens in a lot of sales organizations. And it's brutal, especially in work from home world. It's more and more common where I'll go in and I'll talk to a team and I'm like, no one is actually excited to be here. I know there's probably the whole praise model. There are a bunch of different things. But if there was anything that people could do to fix that and light a fire in the rooms again, like you used to have in the old sales floor days, what are some of the things that sales leaders can do?
That's really the reason that I developed the praise model. And I didn't develop, I'm not a behavioral science. It was just a lot of studying. It's really all of those elements. But I'll tell you, one of the things that really gets us going is the S, which is security. But it's really about the relatedness and the connection that you have with one another. If you were in the Serengeti 2,000 years ago, all by yourself, you'd be in survival mode. You don't sleep well, you don't perform well, you're not creative. The minute that you're a part of a pack, you sleep better because your brain basically goes, all I have to do is be faster than at least one person in this thing, and I got another day. That's part of what a lot of these teams are missing with the hybrid or the remote work too, is that we don't feel that. Like that's the thing that the most successful companies I've ever been a part of, that we would run through a brick wall for each other. Mm-hmm. And I just think that we're missing out on that opportunity. And I think there's ways to do it. That's why all of these sales kickoffs being back in person again and people having an opportunity to connect one-on-one. I went bowling with one. We did Top Golf and we're all hanging out and having fun and getting to know each other. Don't overlook the value of connectedness and the kind of relationship. I think family is an overused word for work because they're not your family, but you can start to have each other's backs. Do you feel like if you asked each person on your team if they have a best friend here, would their answer be yes or no? And if the answer is no, start working on it.
Well, Todd, that was a phenomenal way to cap this off. We have to move to the final question. We talked about a lot of good habits that sales leaders can exhibit, but what is one bad habit that all sales leaders should break so that all the sales teams out there get a little bit better?
Oh, man, one, it would be hard because I have like 400, but I think one of the bad habits goes back to what you measure and how you forecast. Because we talked about that, I'll pick that one.
Yeah.
Be careful when you are measuring pipeline load. One of the things that I used to do wrong that I wish I would have known better is I used to measure my team to, hey, at all times, you got to have 4x your quota in pipeline. Why don't you? Armand, you only got 3x. And what would you do? You'd go fill it with 4x filled with crap.
Yeah.
And as a result, what did we do? We held on to deals too long. We overworked deals. Again, your most valuable resource you can convert to revenue is your time. If we're forcing reps to hold on to it because of something we're measuring, that's ridiculous. And our forecast becomes inaccurate. Instead of looking at 4x, take a step back and go, why is it 4x? Couldn't we do better if we just did a better job of qualifying and had 2x? And if we were at 4x, we'd be hitting 200%. Like, I think so often we get this lens that because everybody's told us to do that, that's what we should do. When you hear a stat like 4x, take a step back and go, why? And is there a better way to think about it? I see that with pipeline loads. I see it with touches. It takes 18 touches to get to an executive today. We're stopping at 7. We need to add 11. That's stupid. Shut up. Stop it. Look at why it's taken 18. And if you can do it in 5 really effectively, do that, right? Like that. We look at data, we look at metrics, and we use them all wrong all day long. And those drive me bananas, especially when I see them on LinkedIn.
Amazing show. Thank you for coming back again. Everyone, hang on for a 60-second recap coming up soon. Alrighty, Nick, time for a 2x2 recap from this episode with Todd Caponi. What do you have for your 2?
So Todd talks about this concept of these demographic sprints where you bring in one of your current customers to take your team through what their world looks like. And he talks about the 4 questions that you should be asking them. The first question is asking them about the tailwinds, what's going well, and the headwinds, what they're scared about, anxious about, or is slowing them down. The next question is, what are the KPIs upon which they are measured? The next question is, where are you actually getting your information when you want to level up in the role that you're in, aka what's your information diet? And then the last question is, show us your inbox. And he lets them know he's going to ask that in advance so they can clear out the really sensitive stuff, but that allows the team to better understand the customer. That takes me to number 2, which is as you're preparing your customers for these education sessions with your team, you have to let them know that this is not a session for them to talk about how they use your product. That can be a small piece of it, but you're really using these to get the team to understand your buyer's world, less so what your product does. So preface that with your customers before you bring them in the room.
Number 3, if you want to get your team to be dangerous in an industry, do a 6-week sprint. In the first couple of weeks, bring in those customers and run the trainings where you're having people immerse your reps in the problems that they face every single day and those 4 questions Nick mentioned. But then towards the back half of that 6-week sprint, start having reps bring things that they're learning about the industry every single week. And then lastly, number 4, if you want to motivate your team, do not just throw money at a spiff. You got to find a way to actually attach it to memorable recognition. And so the example that Todd gave is he had 10 $100 bills, and anyone who closed a deal over $12K got one of those $100 bills. And it was like, once all 10 were gone, it was gone. And so there was scarcity, there was recognition, it was a physical dollar bill, and there was just something about that made it feel so much more real than you get a 3% commission boost. And it was also a lot cheaper. Alrighty, Nick, how can people help us out here?
So Todd's been on our show a couple times, and I will tell you the episode that he did with us around transparent negotiation, where you actually pull the veil away and you teach your buyer how they can get a discount, was one of the most formative foundational episodes for me about negotiation. I got a lot out of that episode, and if you haven't listened to it, we have a link in the show notes to that other episode with Todd. Highly recommend giving it a listen. It will help you as a sales leader, teaching your reps to negotiate. If you're a rep listening here, it will help you as a rep figuring out how to keep more of your commission and put less of it in the trash, while also reducing a lot of friction in your negotiations. So give that episode a listen. We'll see you next week on the show.